In the sport of college football, spring practices are extremely limited, and most spring practices for college football universities culminate in a open practice, open scrimmage known as a spring game, where the offense, the defense were basically two different teams made up of the same team take the field and face each other. The teammates of, let's just use Michigan as an example, as they played their spring game April 1st. Michigan players get together, they split into two different teams, whether this is by draft, whether they put the first string offense and first string defense on one team and the second stringers on another, whether they mix it up, maybe first team offense, second team defense, and the inverse on one team, and then they go out on a scrimmage, points, penalties, the normal rules included, with often the coaching staff also split up in coaching one side of the respective team in the scrimmage. I'm probably making it more complicated than it actually is, but that's just how my mind wants to currently explain it. Spring games to a certain degree are actually fairly complicated, and to another degree, some would argue that they are a waste of time. Some programs don't even have a spring game. Michigan State in their 2022 preseason had literally an open practice, and they had a 7-on-7 scrimmage. They had a full-on scrimmage toward the end, but it wasn't a spring game. It was just an open practice. There was no full-on 60-minute scrimmage or a full football game between teammates like there was at Michigan this April 1st, and like most programs will do throughout the month of April. However, there are some, namely the head coaches of Auburn and Hugh Freeze, Jon Sumrall and Troy, and the University of Alabama Birmingham, that want spring exhibition games in college football. This article is by Brandon Marcello, and I will be reading it. It's from 24/7 Sports, and I'm going to link it down below. Hugh Freeze wants to shake up the format of spring practices across college football. He wants to play other teams in spring exhibition games, which currently you cannot do. The first-year Auburn coach has long been a proponent for ditching intra-squad scrimmages and adopting two-team exhibition games in the spring, but his idea has not gained much traction since he first presented it a decade ago as Ole Miss's head coach. That changed Tuesday. Troy head coach Jon Sumrall doesn't just like the idea, he's ready. He asked that he'd pack up his team on a bus and travel an hour north to suit up his Trojans 1 week to play the Tigers inside Jordan Air Stadium in a spring exhibition. I wouldn't have a problem with it. I'd go play, the second-year coach told 24/7 Sports. Jon Sumrall and his Troy Trojans obviously had a ton of success this past season. Freeze voiced frustration Monday with intra-squad spring games, which he believes can be a wasted day for programs allotted 15 practices in the spring. He believes exhibition games would lead to fewer injuries because fewer players would be on the field compared to an intra-squad scrimmage with 22 players from the same team playing simultaneously. Plus, after hitting teammates for 14 grueling practices, having a spring game and having a matchup between two different teams, a spring exhibition game, it could break the mold, and it could be something new, and again prevent some injuries that typical spring games sometimes have. I do think spring games that are intra-squad can be beneficial. I think Michigan's April 1st game, letting Mike Hart coach a whole team, I think that right there is a good idea. You get some of your younger staff members and some of your assistant coaches to practice being coordinators or head coaches. You get a lot of second and third stringers to get significant playing time in a real game setting. But you could do all of this in a few exhibition games. You certainly could. For the life of me, I don't understand why we haven't gotten to the point where we can pull that off, Freeze said. Until that happens, I think all of us coaches are going to be very guarded in spring games. FBS programs are not allowed to conduct scrimmages against other teams, but the door could be opening. Division II college football teams will allow conduct scrimmages starting a year from now, the spring of 2024. The argument certainly does have merit to it. And there is a long rest of this article that I will leave for you all to link down below. Alabama head coach Nick Saban actually said in July of 2022 he's very much in favor of scheduling a game against an HBCU school, such as Alabama A&M or Alabama State, but the university maintains it will not play an in-state FBS school outside of Auburn. And I think that even for a big program like Alabama or Ohio State, not just smaller programs, but I think all programs could benefit from in-state, almost, quote, preseason scrimmages. You could learn a thing or two. Now, granted, a disadvantage to that could be that you reveal your playbook to someone. But if you don't want to do that, just make sure you don't schedule a scrimmage, preseason scrimmage, with a team that is within your conference or that you are going to play. So I think that this idea, personally, I kind of like it. I really do. I don't think it should be something that's enforced. I think it should certainly be something that's optional, but certainly if two college football minds and if two teams want to collaborate in the preseason, they want to get together, and they just want to play some football in the spring, why not? You might learn a thing or two. And that's all good. It's great, actually. You know, some of the biggest innovators are actually at the lower level. The biggest innovations I've heard start in high school, and they make their way up through the college ranks, and the NFL is actually the last adapter when it comes to things. It's first high school, then some of the lower divisions of college, then FBS college football, and then finally the NFL. So some of these bigger schools practicing against smaller schools like Auburn against Troy, you might learn an early adaptation or two that could give you an advantage. Plus, you'll be playing about half the players that you would typically play in a spring game scrimmage. You wouldn't have 22 of your own players on the field simultaneously. You'd have 11 versus the other team's 11. And plus, it would make for an entertaining game regardless. It really would. It would make an entertaining game. There would be competition as well. Obviously, it is just a spring scrimmage, but both coaching staffs and both teams respectively would want to beat the other. It's kind of like a college basketball exhibition game. They have those in college basketball. So why can't they have one of those in football? It's just my opinion, though. I can understand why some would disagree. I can understand how it could also provide maybe a competitive advantage in an unfair sense to certain schools. It could also provide a competitive disadvantage for some schools as well, who even participate in it. Because again, you want your schemes to be your schemes. You want your personnel and some of your strategies to be your own, to be kept secret. And if you're going to be matching up against another team and you want to win, you might pull some stuff out. You know, you might pull some things out of the bag against another team, even in a preseason scrimmage, that you might not do and you might keep secret if you're just playing with all of your own players. But coaches constantly can learn from each other. They do. They should. And even if this resolution isn't passed anytime soon, I imagine sometime in the future, spring exhibition games will be a thing in college football. And as modern medicine progresses, as the sport gets safer, I could see a future in which the playoff and the regular season games are expanded upon what they already are, and you get more games per season, which I personally think would be fantastic. So the world of college football definitely has a bright future. I think spring exhibition games are involved in that. But even if we don't see it anytime soon, spring games as they stand currently do have their benefit. They also have their drawbacks, but if you have good strength and conditioning, you minimize injuries, you don't push your players too hard, and you constantly rotate your starters, second and third stringers, and practice squad players, not only can you learn a lot, not only can you maybe find diamonds in the rough. Michigan found that out in Benjamin Hall in the spring game, for example. And Jack Tuttle, who, look, transferred into Michigan, didn't have much of a career at Indiana. He looked pretty solid, and he's looked great in spring practice. You learn a lot in the spring game. So I think that this idea is a good one. I just wanted to talk about it here for 10, 11, 12 minutes. Tell me down in the comments below if you're in favor of spring scrimmages. If you're an Ohio State fan, for example, would you like to play Ohio in a spring scrimmage? Not like counted as an actual game, of course. It's a preseason game. It's like in the NFL, the preseason doesn't matter, but maybe learn a thing or two. Maybe save yourself the potential for extra injuries and have some competitive fun, kind of like a coaching and player clinic almost, matching up against an in-state non-conference opponent. Or if you're Alabama, maybe you match up with Alabama A&M. Or if you're Texas or Texas Tech, maybe you play against UTEP in a spring scrimmage. I think that'd be pretty cool. I think you would learn more. I'll tell you what a big benefit to college football analysts, reporters, people who like to make predictions like myself. A spring scrimmage would tell you a whole lot more about how good a team is, in my opinion, than a spring game would, because you're comparing two teams against each other. You're not comparing a team against itself, which can be very challenging to do, because bad teams can look good against themselves. A bad team will not look good against a good team. But that's all I wanted to say in this video, just shooting that idea out there, and I'm in favor of it. I am in favor of what Jon Sumrall and Hugh Freeze want to do when it comes to spring scrimmages. Of course, just for clarification, I'm not in favor of what Hugh Freeze's reputation is off the field, but whatever. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button, comment your thoughts down below, and hit the notification bell. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all around. Bye.